What's up, everyone? Elliot here from Entree Educator with another video to help educators make that next step into entrepreneurship. Today, I'm going to be talking with Rainey Barton, who is from Whimsically Musical. And last week, when I spoke with Nicole Hess, she gave us foundational information about how to start a TPT store for beginners. And I'm really excited today to talk with Rainey because she is going to introduce to us her top 5 hacks into growing your TPT store. And it really builds off the conversation from last week. So without further ado, Rainey, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. I'm Rainy, of course. I'm an elementary music teacher. With my 6 year teaching. I've had my TPT shop since 2016, but I don't really consider it until 2020 because that's when I actually did stuff with it. And yeah, I just created that as like my little side business, but also to I'm already making products for my kids, might as well give them to other teachers. And so I have that. And then I also have a teacherpreneur productivity business. And so I just do those two things and I have a little one. And that's basically me.
Cool. So for a little bit of context, everyone, I was searching through YouTube for people who are talking about building their TPT store, as that's what I'm trying to do myself. I saw Rainey's channel and I was like super interested. I'll definitely leave links to her channels below. Um, but she's at like a great area. And Rainey, you have 97 products I checked in your TPT store. How long has it take you, or how long has it taken to make those?
So like I said, I started taking the business seriously in 2020. Before that, I had maybe 20 products. I had made this one Harry Potter music classroom set, and that was all I had for 4 years. And it always sold in the summer, but I was just never like, oh, this could actually be a business. And so then I was talking to my other TPT friend who was starting to do really well, and she was like, Rainy, you need to take this seriously. And I was like, okay, okay. And so I made 10 more products, and then I actually started making money, and I was like, oh, I should take this seriously. So honestly, I made 70 of those in the last year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And I suppose you were probably working from home during like COVID, so it gave you a little bit more chance on the
Um,
computer.
I was, but a fun fact, I still didn't use COVID. I honestly didn't start until November of 2020. So it
Okay.
was after I already was back at work. And
Okay.
so I had to just do it when I was home or way in the morning when my son was asleep or late at night. So I still didn't even use the time that I could have, which I'm kicking myself now because I could have had so many more products.
Right. Yeah, well, you're at like an awesome level. Like I said, like just below the 100 level. Let's get into your top 5 tips into growing the TPT store. Can you share what you wrote as the number one?
Yeah. So my first one was just picking a niche, which I've learned different words or different meanings for niche. For me, it's just the thing that you're really passionate about, and then the thing that people are also looking for. And so you want to be as specific with that as possible. So if you're a math teacher, making math resources, that's not really specific, and you want to have the same people returning to your store. So maybe you do math resources for third grade specifically, or you do it for K through 2. For me, I do elementary music, but I also have broadened that down into specific types of products. I do a lot of book activities because you can do so many musical activities with books. And so people know they can come to me for that. They know they can come to me for classroom decor. And then my teacherpreneur people, I have teacher Trello boards and stuff they can buy in that store. So I have those three things that I'm trying to be known for. Of course, I make other products, but by having a niche and being very specific on what you're passionate about and what you're good at, that'll bring those people to you, because you don't just want to be this giant one stop all shop, because then you're not going to build the same clientele.
Right. And you know what? When I check out your TPT store, you have like a solid following. You've got 235 people following. And you just brought up something that I haven't thought about in that, you want the same people to keep coming back. So if, for example, I want to make a math store, I wouldn't do third grade one day and sixth grade another because you want
Yeah.
those third grade teachers to keep coming back to your shop.
Yeah, and plus like, you can tell like in TPT it'll let you see when a person has bought more than one product from you. And so like now that like I have more products, like when I make a sale, it'll be like, "Oh, this person's bought 3 things from your shop and this person's bought 4 things." And I'm like, "Oh, so it's finally like where I'm starting to see people come back." And so
Right.
it's definitely because I've like focused in and I'm not just selling like this music game one day and then this classroom pack another day and then like yeah.
Wow, that makes total sense. And yeah, I haven't even thought of that before. That's really cool. All right, so pick a niche and stick to it, and then maybe even niche more than just like the subject, but even the grade level and so on and so forth. Rainey, how about number two?
Yeah. Well, second one is to treat your business like a business, which I
Right.
mean is pretty self-explanatory, but I didn't do it for forever. And I mean, as soon as I started actually making products and like actually posting on my Instagram and even becoming consistent with like my YouTube and stuff, like I've been making money. So
Cool.
it's been like, it's just like, if it's a hobby, it's a hobby and like you're just not going to make money from it. So like you actually have to set aside time, like maybe not every day, like there's at least 2 days a week where like I know I can't get stuff done because I have a lot of other things like my day job and just taking care of my son and whatnot. But those other times that I know I can work on it, I'll have a game plan and then I'm working on it. Like I'm either doing product creation or I'm making content for like my platforms and things, but you're not going to make the money if you're not making the time for it. And at least for me, my goal is to eventually have this replace my teacher income and then I can do this full time. So like I'm not going to be able to do that if I'm not actually viewing it as a business.
For sure. And you know what? When you wrote these top five tips down to me, and then sent them to me before we had this chat, I read them and when you said, build your TPT store like a business, I was expecting like the schedule part of it, but I didn't think outside of that into putting things on your Instagram or maybe even other channels. And you kind of just mentioned that. Can you talk about what you do to promote the things that you're creating?
Yeah. So of course I always do like there's TPT sales every year. There's probably like 2 or 3 sales. And of course those are definitely times, but like I have an email list. So I've been nurturing that, which I need to get better at. Honestly, email is my downfall, but we're getting there. But I do have my email list. And so I'll like do nurture emails through that. And I'll send, of course, sale emails, which that's been super helpful. I'll always not always promote, well, in stories I do try to promote new products and things, but I also try to like balance it out between like showing new products and also just like showing what I'm doing in my classroom. That's honestly the biggest way I'll do it is I'll just share what I'm doing in my classroom and it happens to be a product of mine and then I'll be like, "Oh, you can have it too," because I don't want to just like be like sale 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 on my page because then that's also like kind of annoying. And then another way honestly is through blog posts. That's a really great way because people like to read blog posts, especially if you have like, for me it'll be like, oh, here's a new activity you can do in your classroom, and then they'll read through the blog post and I might give away the entire activity, like that's fine, but they still would have to make the resources to go with it. And so then at that point it's like, oh well, it's right here for you and it's like less than $5 probably, and so you should just buy it, and then most of the time they will. So just like promoting it through long form content, which my YouTube does that too, and that always has been super helpful. Honestly, content marketing has been like the biggest thing for it.
Wow, that sounds really cool. So you could use a blog to take some photos of the kids working on the activity, even give the step-by-step instructions, but then at the bottom just have this link to your TPT store so that they can just get the material right then and there.
Well, yeah, and I don't always like share like every single one. Like there's some that I might just be like it's only a product like blog post like, "Oh, this is why you should get this." But most of the time, yeah, if you're just like, "Here's how to do," like for example, maybe you have like reading centers and you're like, "Here's how to do like these 5 reading centers in your classroom," but like there's a lot of material that you need to make and like prep and things, then it would be like, "And yes, you can go about doing this yourself, but it'd be so much easier if you just bought blank." And then most of the time, at least for me, I would be like, yeah, I'm just going to go buy that because I
Really
don't want to
cool.
make that all myself.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about an email list. Does that come from your blog or does TPT have like a built-in email subscriber?
No, TPT doesn't have that. So that's just either through my blog or the YouTube or just my Instagram in general.
Cool. Very nice. All right, let's move on to number three. What did you write for that? Ready.
Yeah, so this one is the biggest one. Find gaps in the market. This is like how I've been able to have four-figure months in like since I've really taken it seriously. Like I don't always get four-figure months, but that was a big one for it. Basically, like I mean, if you're trying to like figure out like if you look, I don't know, for example, I'm just keep going back to math. But if you go to like, I don't know, equivalent fractions or something and you type that in, there's probably like a billion equivalent fraction worksheets, equivalent fraction this, like there's probably a billion of those already. And so it's where can you find a gap in like maybe either a different way of approaching it that nobody's done, like maybe there's this cool equivalent fraction game you could make that like nobody's done, like a Jeopardy version of it or something, or just even a topic that needs to be addressed but it's just not being on there so often. And so the example I like have for that with my own is I use books all the time in my music room, and there was like no literature music activities for Black History Month like at all. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna make them. And so I made like six of them and then made it into a bundle, and that alone I made like four-figure month, and that was my first month ever like really taking it seriously. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And so then like I just started trying to find the gap in other places, like, oh, like they don't have, I mean, a lot of it is through my books because a lot of people don't actually have a lot of book music activities on there, so that's what I've been like focusing on. But just making that and like finding those gaps was like able to help me like latch on to like a bit of money that like wouldn't have been there if I hadn't have made those resources. And so now also I'm the only one with those Black History Month music book resources. So every year if people are like, oh, I want to use a book for Black History Month and I want to add music to it, mine are the only ones there for now. So it's just like really awesome to find that gap so that you can, but also if it carries in with like what you're passionate with, which I am passionate about books, but it's really important to like find that gap so that you're not just creating something that already has like 500 or like 1,000 different versions of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point also that I think I was gonna take the other direction in because you can find bestsellers, things that are already selling, but it makes more sense to like let's just keep it the same topic of equivalent fractions. I mean, how many different ways can you do them? So you want to find the gap, and if you want to focus on equivalent fractions, then pick a topic that relates to something else that you can be the only person doing it.
Yeah, I mean that really did change it for me. And of course, obviously, like it's a little bit harder when you do have those bigger niches like kindergarten or like other things. Like you're just gonna have to get creative with how you do it. And of course, I have made resources that like already are doing really well. I mean, just because one person or a couple people make them doesn't mean that yours won't sell. But it's just if all you're doing is focusing on like making things that like people make all the time, then you're just not gonna see that money. I mean, there's a lot more TPT sellers now, but there's also a lot more TPT buyers. So you just have to be like aware of like, what am I going to make and how can I make this different? Like, cause I'll see my friend will make new resources and I'll be like, wow, I never even thought of that. And like, it's such a great resource. I'm like, dang, I wish I had thought of that. And so now I'm like, okay, I need to spend more time like really thinking, how can I make this different than like what's already out there?
Right. Okay. So let's just say that you did want to make something for equivalent fractions. In order to find the gap, can you help our listeners find the gap really? Like, would you recommend going through TPT, searching what's already available, and then really just kind of using one's own creativity and like thinking, how can I do it differently? Is that what you do?
Yeah, so with that example, let me see. Yeah, so of course, obviously, like if you have kind of an idea for what you want to do, then obviously you'd look that up first. One, so you can kind of see like what people are naming these things, because just because you have something in your head, if you're not finding exactly what you were thinking of, then it means that your audience is not going to find that. But so looking, if you typed in like equivalent fractions and you see like the top sellers or whatever, you can look at like what their products are and like if they're all different, which they're probably not going to be too different, but you can get ideas from there. Then I would just like brainstorm out like different ways, even like think first like to your own experience, like is there any way that you've taught this differently? If you have, then of course use that. If not, then just like starting to brainstorm like is there a way, like for example, if they're all like worksheets, is there a way that I could make this into a game? Is there a way that I could do a different worksheet, like an interactive like Google Slides activity? Like how is there a different way that I can do this? And then just like mapping it out, and just it's honestly just trial and error. And it might work out, it might not. I've definitely had products that I'm like, yeah, this is like different and it's gonna rock, and it did not. But then I've had others that like I didn't think would like be that great, and then they just like skyrocketed. So honestly, it's just a lot of trial and error in there.
Cool. Okay. Let's go to number four. What's your tip for number four, Rainy?
Yeah, create templates and workflows for yourself from the start. So templates, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but like just as simple as you can make it so that you're not having to recreate the wheel all the time. So like I have a specific folder that's like a template for my previews, a template for my thumbnails, a template for like my products in general. So every time I'm making a new product, I just copy that folder and I don't have to start from scratch because I used to just go to an old product and just copy the preview and like it only took like maybe 5 minutes, but it's 5 minutes I'm wasting. So now I have that template folder and I'll always use it, but also creating like workflows for yourself. And so workflows are just basically your step-by-step process for like how you go about doing something. And I recommend having that for like creation for TPT products and then like maybe for making content just for all the different facets of your business, because the worst thing you can do is like sit down and say I'm going to work on my business today and then you don't have a plan and then you sit there for 20 minutes trying to figure out what you're trying to do and then you get distracted and you're on your phone and it's just this whole endeavor. So now if I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and it's a TPT product day, I can just open, because I have this little workflow folder, and I'll just open it and it'll say TPT product and then it'll say step 1, 2, 3, and then it just says what I do. And so then I can just no, there's no distraction there. There's nothing like I guess, yeah, getting rid of my focus, and then I can just get to work and go. And so I've created that for like all different things. I've created it for TPT product creation, and then for like batching my long form content, and then like email marketing, just like all the things. So that if I'm ever like, today I need to work on email, I just have it right there. And the great thing about making it now is if you want to hire out eventually, then if you already have a repeatable process that's working for you, you can give it to them. And then you're not one having to figure out what do I do, because then that's just wasting your own money on a VA and things. But two, like it'll just be so much easier to be like, here's this, just read this or watch even a video of this, and then they can just immediately do what you're doing and it'll be seamless.
That sounds awesome. Like having a checklist for yourself to know you can just go run right down through it. And by creating your products, what software, what program are you using?
PowerPoint and Canva.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. Let's go to the fifth hack for growing the TPT store.
Yeah, so that one is just using SEO to title your products and using your product descriptions. So SEO, search engine optimization, it's just basically how you optimize like either your website or your TPT store to have Google rank it. And you SEO does work on TPT as well. And so basically like the best way to do that is like if I have a new resource, I'll type in what I want it to be named on TPT first, and I'll see if the type of resources that like it would be related to show up. And if they do, then I know I'm on the right path. And if they don't, and there's not that many like people searching for that, I'm going to probably change it. But I'll like look up what I want it to be. And then if it's great and I like it, then I'll change it to that. And the key here is also naming your products that as well. So like naming it exactly how it would be, like naming it for everything. So like if you name your product, I don't know, music rhythm games, then you would also put your preview like music rhythm games preview, and then music rhythm games thumbnail one, like naming it all like that, because that helps with Google. But once you've done that, also using it in your product description as well. So like the snippet is like the first 2 to 3 sentences of your product description, and you want to make sure you have your title in there and then any other related keywords. So if mine was like a digital music rhythm game, I would want to have like interactive and like Google Slides and what grade levels it would be in, and like just all those different keywords, so that if people are typing in like Google Slides music activity, like they'll still find that because it was in those first 2 to 3 sentences. So like really optimizing your products definitely helps as well, so that people actually find your stuff. And like through this, my products are most of the time on page one. So
Mm,
it's been working. So
that is so cool. I didn't know that the first sentence of the description is the snippet that TPT uses. So that is really helpful.
Yeah, it's the first 2 to 3. So just stuff like as many keywords in there as you can without it sounding robotic. Like it still has to make sense and stuff. But yeah, like if you just do it in the first 2 to 3 sentences, that's what TPT picks up on.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate your top 5 tips. Just for anyone who is wondering, if you've been taking this seriously since November, that's what, like about 8 months or so right now.
Hmm. Yeah.
And for me, yeah, I think I've got 4 products in my TPT store now. I would love to know if you found any correlation between, like, since you've had 20 products or 50 products or 75 products, you've made 100 or 300 or anything like
Yeah.
that. Any patterns between product number to financial success?
Yeah. So I'll say with 20, like on I'm sure some people I know friends that have 20 and they make like, I don't know, anywhere from like 50 maybe to 100 a month. I didn't, but that was only because mine was only the Harry Potter music classroom. And so like it was only gonna sell in the summer unless you're randomly changing your classroom up in like November. But I have noticed the biggest thing is to like get to 50 as soon as you can first, because 50 is when you'll really start to see like that shift of like a couple hundred. I mean, maybe even more depending on like what your thing is. Like for me, that was when I made my first 4 figure month, but that was because it was when I was doing those Black History Month things. And it was also, yeah, everyone was just buying stuff at that time. So I just lucked out in that regard. But getting to 50, because first off, like that's 50 chances for people to find you. But also, I've tended to notice that most of the time, once people get to 50, that they start to see a bigger income. And then yeah, and then just going like every 25 and then getting to your next 75 and then your 100, which I'm gonna get to very soon.
Super
I
soon.
have a
Yeah.
bunch of products on my like to-do list, but I've had that on my mind for a while. But yeah, I mean, it's just the more products you have, the more money you're going to make. It does correlate, but there's not like an exact correlation, because yeah, some people will have 20 products and they could be making 4 figure months because their products are just like very well needed. And then there's some people that have 100 products that are just not making a lot. So honestly, it just more depends on the quality of your product and like what your product is focused on. So the number's not necessarily as important.
Cool. That sounds really awesome. Rainey, I really appreciate your time. I personally have gained a lot from this, and I think the listeners will have too. Can you share where we can find you on your channels? Where are you at?
Yeah. So I I have technically have like 2 channels and things, but for TPT, that one is just whimsically musical on Instagram, on YouTube, all the things. But if like you're wanting like the teacherpreneur tips and things, then that's my other business. So that's just the Timely Teacherpreneur, and that's also across all platforms. So it's just those two. But yeah.
Awesome. You mentioned that you're building a course right now. Do you want to introduce that right now? And then I know it's not out yet, but it's soon.
It's
And
coming
if
out in
you
9 days.
Yeah, exactly. It's super soon. And what I think would be great is, link me to the course when you have it up so that, I can put it on the blog. And do you want to, introduce that right now?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Yeah. So it was supposed to come out on the 7th, but having a little one just made that impossible. So it's okay.
It
Anyway,
happened.
yeah, so it's called the batching breakdown, and I created it because I kept getting a bunch of questions from people just in like general of like how do you organize your business or how do you batch or like all these things, because like I've been fairly consistent in all of that. And so I took that, but also my passion for productivity and just kind of combined the two, because I've been learning a lot more about the research behind productivity. And like, it doesn't matter how much stuff you're doing if you're doing it at the wrong time. There's actually like, it's really important to be observing your energy and like noticing like when you like, there's different times throughout the day where you can be super focused on stuff. There's different times where you're more creative. There's different times where you're more communicative, and using all of that and doing those types of tasks at the right time actually will 10x your productivity. So my course just like first teaches you like how to find out like where your energy dips are and like how to what type of task would go with each one. So like an example, like creating content would go in your creativity block, but like responding to emails would go in your communication block, because that's when you're best able to express your thoughts. So I first teach like the win of productivity and help you figure it out according to your biological clock. And then once you've gotten that down, we go through like how to create your your systems, how to create your workflows, and then you actually, the goal of the end of the course is to help you batch quarterly content, whether it's for a blog, whether it's for a podcast, whether it's for YouTube. That way, because long form content is what's going to help you sell more. That's why I focus on it. Instagram is fleeting, Facebook is fleeting, but like those long form content will be around. So that's why I also think it's really important to have one of those. But the whole goal is to help you be consistent in that and batch that by the end. And then you have systems and workflows set up. And like I provide all these templates, all these things, but that's what the course is on.
Oh my God, that sounds awesome. I would personally love to like be guided step by step to figure out like, yeah, because there are times when I would prefer to create, there are times when I would prefer to communicate, and I just do the things at the moment whenever I do the things without blocking certain times out. Never thought about doing that. And then in order to make more products on the TPT store. That sounds really cool, Rainey. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I'll definitely link your channels up and then send me the link when the course is released next week or two, and I'll put that on there too.
Yeah, thanks for having me.